What it do, man? Day two. We survived, man. We survived. The good doctor threw some wicked punches here and there, but whoo, we tanked it, man. What did we learn today, King? We learned that there are things called data types, right? And we've pretty much been working with them. So it's the strings, the integers, the floats, and the boolean, right? And these are the primitive data types in Python. And what would I say were my key takeaways from this? So one of the things that I found very interesting today was the type checking and the type conversion, right? So type checking. Remember that sometimes when we are constructing the code, sometimes what we might think that is an integer might turn out to be a string, especially with user input. Sometimes when you take the user input, it comes in as a string. So that is one of the things that I was finding like issues with, or I was having challenges with, uh, because I would think that, I've just accepted user input and this has to be an integer or whatever it is, but all along it was a string. So type checking helps you to find that out, by using the type function. And then there's also type conversion. For example, when okay, now that you've established that this thing is the wrong type, and then you're trying to convert it to the right type. So you use you do type conversions. Okay, the other thing that I found interesting was the subscript, and the way that you can use it with strings. Prior to today, I don't think I had ever looked at it this way, man. Like in my mind, right? I had always pictured it that it was, you use the subscript on a variable. However, it never really registered in my mind that you can actually use it on a string, like as is, on a value, right? And then you use that, and then you traverse through the string with the subscript. What am I saying? Okay, whatever it is that I was trying to say. Okay, you got it. We're moving on to the next thing. Okay, the next thing was the F string. This one, pretend that you've got a user called biggest dickest, right? So this guy, pretend that you've got a score and you needed a score. And this is one of the issues that we had yesterday, where we tried to put an integer and a string together, and then we couldn't do it. Turns out that the good doctor was thinking about us all this time, man. This is the solution to that problem. F string. F string allows you to input uh, a variable within the string. For example, so say that we had already declared or set a variable called score, and is keeping the score for biggest thickest right there. So what it's gonna do is that we can now just put in the variable score there, and then it's gonna, as this code runs, because of the f string, it's gonna pull out the value as well. And now we don't have to do all of that stuff that I was doing the previous day. So we've evolved, man. We've evolved. We know some stuff now. Then the other thing that I found interesting was the underscore. Did you know that you can actually use the underscore to make things a bit more readable when, let's say, if you're explicitly typing things out, code or values into in you know you're okay, you're typing out stuff, correct? For example, here's a value: 5,318,008. It is a bit hard to read that value, right? If you don't put like commas in between the spaces and whatnot, between the numbers and whatnot, it might be a bit harder to decipher what kind of number it is. Is it in the millions? Is it only in the hundred thousands? So underscore helps with that. And did you know that in Python, that is just a placeholder? For example, when you're using it in this context, when you're executing the code, the underscores get stripped away, and then is just treated as a normal number. So this just helps the human, but it means nothing to the computer. So we also learned about PEMDAS. in our part of the world, it was like BODMAS. It's a long time ago for me. So PEMDAS is parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division. Multiplication and division are on the same level, by the way, and addition and subtraction, same thing also. Just depends which one comes, which appears first when you're reading from left to right. So this is the order of precedence that you have to be mindful of when you're coding, right? The thing that first gets taken into consideration are the brackets or the parentheses, and then the exponents. Oh, and speaking of exponents, did you know that it comes built in into Python? And how do you use that? It's the double asterisk. So 2 asterisk asterisk 3 equals 8. So whereas before, you'd have multiplied, let's say, okay, 1 asterisk, you would have said 2 asterisk 3. That is, means 2 times 3, right? But when you put 2 asterisks, that then becomes an exponent. It's like what do you call that thing on the Casio calculators? Whatever that thing is that is the exponent. Then the other thing that we learned was division in Python. That there's integer division, which returns a float being a number that has a decimal point after it, right? Then there was also float division. The interesting thing about float division is that it doesn't give a rat's ass about about anything that's floating, okay? It doesn't care. It just truncates everything. It just removes everything that comes after the point. So, for example, here I've got an example of 5 divided by 2, but then is the float division. The answer is 2. There is no 2.5 like the previous one. No, we don't do that here. So yeah, then the next thing, okay, the things that we did do today was the BMI calculator. I found out that I was thick, man, thick like Megan. Not quite sure how I feel about that, hey. But it is what it is, part of life. I gotta hit the gym. Then we had also the life in weeks. Man, I found out that I actually don't have that much time, as much time as I thought I had. Man, like, sheesh, the dog really had me on that one, man. She had me on that one. Then there was the final project, which I submitted. It works. It works brilliantly. However, it also it is the same situation as the day before. For some reason, my final projects are not being accepted, man. Are not being auto graded, even though they work perfectly or perfectly in my eyes. From what I can see. However, one thing that I did take away from this, one thing that was interesting was the way that the doc uh, did her thing. She did her thing like this, because we did like a tip calculator, and at the end you had to format the fee in such a way that it is in two decimal places, right? And that is something that I struggled with today, like a lot, because I'd initially tried using the round function, which is something that I also learned today. The round function is like this, just with a small r. The round function, however, it takes in the value and say the decimal places. Well, I think that's how it is. So you put in your variable here, and then you state how many decimal places that you want. Maybe like say 2, for example, since we're dealing with currency. For some reason, it wasn't working. Every time I was running my code, it kept on giving me one decimal point, right? I tried, man. I was scratching my head, man. I've got hair that's all over this keyboard here, man. I lost hair thinking on this, man. But the good doctor did encourage us to look on Google, and I did my solution. The one that I found was this, right? Right. Format, brackets, calculation, then you put this thing here. So I think I still have quite a bit of reading up to do just to understand how this thing works exactly, because currently I thought, from here, if this was the final answer, I had already understood it, like, okay, this is how we do things. But turns out that this format thing has a lot of things It's got a it's got a lot of masks. Hey, it doesn't come with one face. It's it's got yeah. It is what it is. But anyways, that is it for day two. Yeah, see you tomorrow, man.